There are moments in history when people stop trusting money, not because they want to, but because they have no choice. The paper in their wallets becomes worthless. The banks close their doors. The government lies. And in that moment, in the chaos, in the fear, there is only one thing left that everyone believes in: gold. Not because gold is magic, but because for 5,000 years, gold has survived every collapse, every revolution, every empire that ever fell. And when trust dies, people run to gold to survive the night. This has happened 5 times in recorded history. 5 gold panics so violent, so total, that they didn't just reshape economies, they toppled kingdoms. They ended empires. They rewrote the rules of civilization itself. And every single one of those panics started the same way. A government printing money, a currency collapsing, the elites fleeing, the people panicking, and gold becoming the only lifeline. Today, central banks around the world are buying gold at record levels. China, Russia, India, Poland, Turkey. They're moving away from dollars and into the one asset that has never failed. And if you know history, you know what that means. Another gold panic is coming, and when it hits, it will reshape the world. If you want to understand why gold has destroyed kingdoms, why governments fear it, and why the next panic could be the biggest in history, smash that like button and subscribe. Because this channel reveals the patterns that predict the future, the cycles that most people miss, and the warnings that could save you when the system breaks. And what you're about to learn will change the way you see money, power, and survival forever. So, what is a gold panic? Most people imagine treasure hunts, pirates, conquistadors, but the reality is far darker. A gold panic is a mass psychological stampede triggered by fear. It's what happens when millions of people, all at once, realize their money is dying, and they run not to another currency, not to the stock market, but to gold. The one thing that can't be printed, that can't be debased, that can't be controlled by governments. Here's the pattern. It starts with a weakening currency. The government prints too much. Inflation rises, prices spike. Then confidence collapses. People stop trusting the system. They see the writing on the wall. Then citizens flee to gold. They buy it, they hoard it, they hide it. And finally, governments panic. Because when people abandon the currency, the government loses control. And throughout history, when governments lose control, they do desperate things. They seize gold. They ban it. They revalue it. They try to force people back into the system, but it never works. Because once trust is gone, it doesn't come back. And right now, in 2024, we're seeing the early stages of this pattern again. Central banks are stockpiling gold at the fastest pace in 50 years. The US dollar's share of global reserves is quietly declining. Inflation is eroding purchasing power. And people around the world are starting to ask the question that always precedes a gold panic. Can I trust this money? Panic number 1. The Roman gold drain. 1st to 3rd century AD, Rome is the most powerful empire the world has ever seen. It controls Europe, North Africa, the Middle East. Its legions are unstoppable. Its currency, the denarius, is accepted everywhere. But Rome has a problem. It's bleeding gold. The Roman elite love luxury. Silk from China, spices from India, perfumes from Arabia, exotic goods from the East, and they pay for it all in gold. At first, it's fine. Rome has gold mines in Spain, in Dacia, in North Africa. But the trade imbalance grows. More gold flows out than comes in. And over time, the Roman treasury starts running low. The rich, the senators, the landowners, they see it happening. So they start hoarding gold. They melt down coins. They hide it in estates. They pull it out of circulation. Meanwhile, the government needs gold to pay the legions. Soldiers demand it. They refuse debased silver. And when Rome can't pay in gold, the military gets restless. Mutinies break out. Loyalty fractures. So what does Rome do? It debases the denarius. The silver content drops from 100% to 90, then 80, then 50. By the 3rd century, it's less than 5% silver. The rest is cheap metal. And the result? Inflation explodes. Prices skyrocket. The economy collapses. Trade breaks down. The empire fractures. Why? Because Rome lost its gold. And when the gold drained away, so did the power. The myth was simple. Rome couldn't run out of gold. Rome was eternal. But the reality, the Eastern gold drain destabilized the currency, triggered inflation, and created military unrest that Rome never recovered from. The lesson: when gold leaves, empires fall. And right now, gold is leaving the West and moving east to China, to Asia, to the BRICS nations. The same pattern, the same drain, and if history is any guide, the same result. Panic number 2, the Spanish gold curse, 1500s to 1600s. Spain conquers the New World, the Americas, and they find something beyond imagination. Gold, silver, entire mountains of it. Treasure fleets sail back to Spain, loaded with riches. The Spanish crown becomes the wealthiest in Europe, richer than France, richer than England, richer than anyone. Spain believes it has one. It has the gold. It has the power. It controls the world. But here's what no one expected. The gold destroyed them. At first, Spain thrives. The king funds wars, builds palaces, expands the empire. But then something strange happens. Prices start rising. Bread that cost 1 real now costs 2, then 5, then 10. This is inflation. Spain is flooded with gold, but it's not producing anything. There's more money chasing the same goods, and prices explode. The Spanish middle class, the farmers, the craftsmen, the merchants, they're crushed. They can't afford to live. Meanwhile, Spain stops building industries. Why manufacture when you can import everything with gold? Why innovate when treasure ships arrive every year? The economy becomes hollow, dependent, fragile, and when the gold flow slows, when the mines run dry, when the treasure ships stop, Spain collapses. By the 1600s, Spain defaults on its debts. Multiple times, it loses wars, loses territory, loses status. The empire crumbles, and nations that built real economies, England, France, the Netherlands, rise to replace it. The myth was clear. More gold makes a nation richer, but the reality: gold without production is poison. It creates inflation, destroys the middle class, and hollows out the economy. Now look at the United States today. America doesn't produce gold from conquests, but it produces something else: dollars, trillions of them, printed out of thin air. And just like Spain, America has stopped producing. It imports, it consumes, it borrows. The economy is built on paper, not productivity. And just like Spain, when the world stops accepting the paper, when trust collapses, the empire will fall. The Spanish gold curse is a warning. Too much of the wrong kind of wealth destroys nations, and America is standing on the same cliff. Panic number 3, the French Revolution gold flight, 1789 to 1796. France is bankrupt. The monarchy has spent everything. Wars, palaces, Versailles. The treasury is empty. The people are starving. Revolution is brewing, and the elites see it coming, so they take their gold and run. Wealthy aristocrats, merchants, bankers, they start fleeing Paris. They hide gold in carriages, sew it into clothing, smuggle it across borders to England, to Switzerland, anywhere safe. Meanwhile, the revolutionary government is desperate. They need money, so they seize land from the Catholic Church and issue a new currency, the assignat. It's backed by land, they say. It's safe, they promise. At first, people believe it. But then the government prints more and more and more to fund the revolution, to pay soldiers, to feed the cities. And just like every time in history, inflation explodes. Bread costs 10 times what it did a year ago. Meat, cloth, everything. The assignat becomes worthless. And the people holding it, the middle class, the workers, the peasants, they're destroyed. But the people who fled with gold, they're fine, they're safe, they're wealthy. And when the chaos ends, when France stabilizes, they return. Richer than before, because gold survived, paper didn't. The myth was seductive. Paper money backed by land is safe. The government wouldn't let it fail. But the reality: inflation erased the paper. Gold became the underground currency. People refused assignats. They traded only in gold. And the middle class was wiped out. The lesson is brutal. When trust dies, people move to gold instantly, not slowly, not gradually, overnight. And those who hold gold survive. Those who trust the government don't. Now look at the world today. Governments are printing. Inflation is rising. Trust is eroding. And the wealthy are quietly moving to gold. Not because they're paranoid, but because they know history. And history says when the paper burns, gold is all that's left. Panic number 4. The 1933 U.S. gold seizure. The year is 1933. America is in the depths of the Great Depression. Unemployment is at 25%. Banks are failing, businesses are closing, and people are panicking. They're running to banks to withdraw their money and convert it to gold because they don't trust the system. They don't trust the dollar, they trust gold. This is a classic bank run. And when everyone demands gold at once, the system breaks. So President Franklin Roosevelt does something unprecedented. On April 5, 1933, he signs Executive Order 6102. All gold coins, gold bullion, and gold certificates must be turned in to the Federal Reserve. You have until May 1st. Failure to comply is a $10,000 fine and 10 years in prison. The American people are told this is for stability, to save the economy, to protect the banking system, and most comply. They turn in their gold. They receive $20.67 per ounce in paper dollars, and they go home believing they did their patriotic duty. But months later, the government revalues gold from $20.67 to $35 per ounce, a 69% increase. Overnight, the people who turned in their gold lost 69% of their wealth, not through market forces, not through bad investments, but through government decree. This was wealth confiscation, legal, quiet, devastating. The myth was simple. The gold seizure was for stability, to save the economy. But the reality, it was to devalue the dollar, to give the government more room to print, to transfer wealth from the people to the state. And it worked. The government got the gold. The people got paper. And the purchasing power of the dollar has declined 90% since the lesson. When governments are desperate, property rights mean nothing. Gold can be seized, assets can be confiscated, and trusting the system is a gamble. Now ask yourself, could this happen again? In a crisis, when debt is unmanageable, when the dollar is collapsing, when the government is desperate, could they seize gold again, or Bitcoin, or assets? History says yes, because they've done it before. And when the next panic hits, they'll do it again. Panic number 5. The 1971 Nixon Shock. August 15, 1971, Sunday night, President Richard Nixon appears on television, and in a 15-minute speech, he changes the world. He announces that the United States will no longer convert dollars to gold. This is called closing the gold window, and it ends the Bretton Woods system, the global financial order that has existed since World War II. Up until that moment, foreign governments could exchange U.S. dollars for gold at $35 per ounce. That backing gave the dollar legitimacy. It made the dollar the global reserve currency. But America had been printing dollars faster than it had gold. The Vietnam War, social programs, deficits, and other countries noticed. France, under Charles de Gaulle, started demanding gold. Lots of it. Ships full of gold left New York for Paris. Other nations followed. Germany, Switzerland, Japan. They all wanted gold, and the U.S. didn't have enough. So Nixon ended it. In one speech, one decision, no debate, no warning. The entire global financial system was rewritten over a weekend. The myth was clear. The U.S. could always honor its gold promises. The dollar was as good as gold. But the reality, America had printed too many dollars. The gold was running out, and rather than face the consequences, Nixon severed the link and let the dollar float. And what happened next? The dollar collapsed. It lost 30% of its value within 2 years. Inflation exploded. By the end of the 1970s, inflation was in double digits. Gas prices quadrupled. The cost of living soared, wages stagnated. The middle class was squeezed, and gold. Gold went from $35 an ounce in 1971 to over $850 by 1988, 2,400% increase in less than a decade. This was a global gold panic. Countries, institutions, and individuals around the world rushed to buy gold because they no longer trusted the dollar. The Nixon shock didn't just end the gold standard. It ended an era, and it ushered in the age of pure fiat currency, money backed by nothing but trust. And 50 years later, that trust is eroding again. Central banks are buying gold. Countries are reducing dollar reserves. De-dollarization is accelerating. And the same signals that preceded the 1971 panic are flashing today. So what do these 5 panics share? First, rising debt, Rome, Spain, France, America in 1933, America in 1971. Every gold panic was preceded by unsustainable debt. Governments spending more than they had. Borrowing, printing, inflating. Second, weakening currency. When governments can't pay their debts, they debase the money, they print, they inflate, they destroy purchasing power, and people flee. Third, political crisis. Gold panics don't happen in stable times. They happen at the end of eras. Rome's decline, Spain's collapse, the French Revolution, the Great Depression, the end of Bretton Woods. Fourth, elite flight. The wealthy always see it coming first. They move to gold before everyone else, and by the time the masses panic, it's too late. Fifth, middle-class panic. When inflation hits, when trust dies, the middle class is crushed. They hold cash, they trust the system, and they lose everything. And sixth, governments trying and failing to regain control. Seizures, bans, reevaluations, restrictions. Governments always fight back, but it never works, because gold panics aren't about gold, they're about trust. And when trust dies, no government decree can bring it back. So why could another gold panic happen in the 2020s? Because all the conditions are back. Central banks are stockpiling gold at record levels. In 2022 and 2023, they bought more gold than at any time since 1971. China is buying, Russia is buying, India, Poland, Turkey. Why? Because they see the U.S. debt, 35 trillion, and rising. They see the money printing, the inflation, the instability, and they're preparing for a world where the dollar is no longer king. U.S. debt has exploded. There's no path to paying it off. The only options are inflated away or default. Both destroy the currency. Both trigger gold panics. Inflation cycles are repeating. The 1970s, stagflation, rising prices, stagnant wages, it's happening again. And just like the 1970s, gold is rising. Geopolitical fragmentation is accelerating. The world is splitting. The West versus the East. BRICS versus NATO. And in fragmented worlds, gold becomes the neutral asset. De-dollarization is real. Countries are settling trade in yuan, in rubles, in local currencies. The dollar's share of global reserves has dropped from 70% to under 60%. It's not collapsing, but it's eroding. And erosion leads to panic. And then there's the digital currency era. Central bank digital currencies are coming. Governments want control. They want to track every transaction. They want to program money, and when they launch CBDCs, gold becomes the last private, untrackable, government-proof asset, the final escape hatch, and that makes it dangerous to those in power. Here's the final warning. Every gold panic in history marked the end of an era, the end of Roman dominance, the end of Spanish Empire, the end of the French monarchy, the end of the gold standard, the end of dollar convertibility. Gold panics aren't random events. They're signals. They mark the moment when one system dies and another is born. And right now, all the signals are flashing. The debt, the printing, the inflation, the distrust, the central bank buying, the geopolitical shifts, the quiet move away from the dollar. If history repeats, and it always does, the next gold panic may mark the end of the economic world we know today. Not the end of America, not the end of civilization, but the end of the dollar's dominance, the end of the current financial order, the end of an era, and when that happens, when the panic begins, it will be too late to prepare, because gold panics move fast. One day, everything seems fine. The next, the world is scrambling for the one asset that has survived every collapse in human history. So pay attention. Watch the central banks. Watch the debt. Watch the currency. Watch the trust. Because when gold moves, power shifts. And when governments panic over gold, the people pay the price. History doesn't repeat, but it echoes loudly. And right now, the echo is deafening.